On the bottom of the world, far off the coast of Antarctica, sits Peter the First Island. Roughly 450 kilometers from the rest of the mainland, Peter the First Island is considered one of the most remote places on Earth. Zooming in on this island, it looks pretty gnarly on Google Maps. This place is a cold, glaciated shield volcano with very little life besides mosses, southern fulmars, crab-eater seals, and leopard seals. Some satellite images show more or less ice depending on the season, and it's hard to make out what's really going on here. In this video, I aim to learn about the history of Peter the First Island, figure out if there are any buildings on it, and explore the interesting things that have happened here over the years. Let's explore. Peter the First Island was first sighted on January 21st, 1821 by Russian explorer Fabian Bellingshausen during a 2-year expedition aimed at exploring the Southern Ocean and searching for land near the South Pole. He ended up finding a lot more than expected, including parts of the Antarctic mainland and lots of subantarctic islands, including Bellinghausen's Island in the South Sandwich Islands, which I mentioned in my video about the southernmost point of every near Antarctic country. Bellingshausen spotted Peter the First Island and named it after Tsar Peter I, or Peter the Great, the first emperor of Russia in the early 1700s, but he and his crew did not land on it. I don't blame him. There's too much ocean to cover, and there's a lot of drift ice blocking his access. Over the next century, others would sail near Peter the First Island, but no one landed on it. It wasn't until February 2nd, 1929, that someone finally stepped onto the island. On behalf of Norway, Captain Nils Larsen landed and claimed the island. Larsen and his crew spent about 6 days surveying its features and taking photographs, and during the same voyage, they also came to this area to look for Thompson Island, Doherty Island, and the Chimneys, Phantom Island south of the South Shetlands that turned out not to be there. After Peter the First Island, they continued all the way over here to Bouvet Island, which I've done a video about if you want to watch, where they intended to build a wireless station. Well, that failed. And Larsen later said, without supplies, conditions on the island were such that it could not have supported human life. In 1931, Norway formally annexed Peter the First Island, 2 years after claiming Bouvet Island and 8 years before claiming Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. The Soviet Union did not recognize Norway's claim to Peter the First Island, as they wanted a say in how Antarctica was governed and claimed. The next documented visit here was in 1948. I found some newspaper articles from the time. Holgersson reported that many glaciers on Peter the Island had retreated with signs of a warming polar climate. In 1961, many countries signed the Antarctic Treaty, which suspended new claims and military activity south of 60 degrees south, which included Peter the First Island. The Antarctic Treaty is somewhat complicated, and I would like to make a video on just it one day. Anyways, Norway still considers Peter the First Island as a dependency under its Antarctic territories, although it's largely ungoverned. Because of how rarely it's visited, Peter the First Island is a prized destination for amateur radio operators, people who travel to obscure locations to make contact with other amateur radio enthusiasts around the world. In 1987, the first de-expedition, or amateur radio expedition, to Peter the First Island took place. This website that I'll link down in the description describes their whole journey and has a lot of cool photos from then. They had a lot of their supplies dropped by helicopter, and they stayed in tents while down there. Then, that same year, Norwegian scientists stayed on this island and around here for about 11 days, and they installed an automated weather station way up here somewhere. I used Google Earth and I zoomed in all around where it could be, but I just could not find it as it's really small and just somewhere in the middle of this snow. But it should be somewhere around this cape up here called Cape Ingrid, as I found a research paper about Peter the First Island, and it says the automatic weather station is right over here on this tip. Here's a picture of what the automatic weather station looks like. It's barely just one stick poking out of the snow, so it's not going to be easy to spot on satellite. And this website's awesome for a lot of pictures on Peter the First Island, so I'll also link this down in the description, as well as the rest of my sources. Some more amateur radio expeditions occurred in 1994 and 2006, with some really cool photos taken during those visits that I'll also link down in the description. Like I said earlier, most of the landings occur up here in Cape Ingrid on the north side, which has gentler slopes, and about 95% of this island is glacier covered and with steep 40-meter cliffs. It's also surrounded by pack ice and rough seas, making boat landings nearly impossible for most of the year. Peter the First Island is a giant shield volcano and is considered dormant, though it hasn't been thoroughly studied enough to confirm whether it's truly extinct. It also reaches a height of 1,640 meters or 5,380 feet, which is higher than Denver at the top. The peak is called Lars Christensen Peak, which is named after the Norwegian philanthropist who financed Larsen's expedition. Wildlife here is very sparse, but there are mosses, southern fulmars, crab-eater seals, leopard seals, and some penguins that I saw in some YouTube videos. There are also some private expedition cruises that visit Peter the First Island, but they aren't cheap, and most of the landings require helicopters due to the rough terrain and cliffs. It's honestly wild to think that there's still places like Peter the First Island, mostly untouched and barely known. One of the videos I watched where someone visited Peter the First Island said that the island likely looks almost exactly the same as it did when it was first discovered, which can't be said for most places on Earth. What other remote places should I cover next? I read all your guys' comments and really appreciate them. Thanks for watching.